What if everything you've been taught about fear is wrong? What if fear isn't your enemy, but your mind's way of keeping you trapped? The Shaolin monks knew this secret, and today you'll learn how to break free. Most people spend their lives running from fear. They avoid risks, stay in comfort zones, and let their minds control them. But there's another way, a way that doesn't just suppress fear, but dissolves it. A method tested for centuries in the Shaolin temples. And the best part, it doesn't require superhuman discipline, just a shift in understanding. Fear lives in the mind, not reality. You're standing at the edge of a high dive. Your hands grip the rail. The water below looks miles away. Your heart races. Your legs won't move. What's holding you back? Is it the height? The water, the risk of pain? It's the thought of falling. The idea of losing control. That's where fear lives. Not in the world around you, but in the stories your mind creates. The ancient masters had a saying, fear is the shadow of the mind. Shadows can't hurt you. They have no substance. But if you believe the shadow is real, you'll run from it forever. This is the first lesson. Fear isn't in the event. It's in the anticipation of the event. The job interview isn't scary. It's the thought of failing it. The stage isn't terrifying. It's the idea of being judged. The fight isn't the problem. It's the story of losing. Let me ask you this. Have you ever avoided something out of fear, only to realize later it wasn't that bad? Maybe you postponed a difficult conversation, only to find the other person was understanding. Or you delayed starting a project, only to discover it was easier than you imagined. That's proof. The fear wasn't in the thing itself. It was in your projection of the thing. The masters trained their students to see this illusion. They'd take them to the edge of cliffs at night and say, "Tell me what you feel." The students would describe terror, the drop, the darkness, the unknown. Then the master would light a torch. Suddenly, the cliff wasn't a bottomless pit. It was just a rock. The fear didn't vanish because the cliff changed. It vanished because the perception of the cliff changed. This is why most self-help advice fails. They tell you to face your fears, but they don't tell you how. You can't face fear by brute force. You face it by seeing it for what it is, a trick of the mind. Here's how to do it. Next time fear arises, pause. Don't fight it. Don't run. Just ask, what am I actually afraid of? Not the surface level answer. Dig deeper. If you're afraid of public speaking, is it really about the audience? Or is it about being exposed, being seen as inadequate? Trace it back. You'll always find the same root, a story your mind is clinging to. The masters called this cutting the thread. Imagine fear as a puppet. The puppet moves because of strings, the stories you feed it. I'll fail, they'll laugh, I'm not enough. Cut one string, and the puppet weakens. Cut them all, and it collapses. One student once asked, "But what if the fear is real? What if the danger is true?" The master nodded. "Then it's not fear, it's wisdom. There's a difference between fear and instinct. Fear is what if I fall. Instinct is the rope is frayed. One is imaginary, the other is real. Learn to tell them apart." This is why meditation was central to their training, not to escape the world, but to see the mind clearly. In silence, you notice how thoughts arise, how fear starts as a whisper, then builds into a scream if you feed it. Watch long enough and you'll see the pattern. Fear needs your attention to survive. Ignore it, and it fades. But here's the secret they never teach. You don't have to wait for fear to disappear to act. The masters didn't train warriors without fear. They trained warriors who moved with fear. One student, trembling before his first sparring match, was told, "Your hands shake. Good. Now step forward." Action isn't the absence of fear. It's the refusal to let fear decide. This is the ultimate truth. You'll never stop fear from appearing, but you can stop it from ruling. The mind will always create shadows. Your job isn't to destroy them, it's to recognize them and step forward anyway. The body controls the mind, not the other way around. You've heard it 1,000 times. Control your thoughts, and you'll control your life. It sounds logical, but it's backward. Ask anyone who's tried to think positive while their heart is pounding, their palms are sweating, and their breath is shallow. It doesn't work. Why? Because the body doesn't follow the mind. The mind follows the body. The ancient masters knew this. They didn't start their students with philosophy. They started with posture, with breath, with movement. Before a disciple could discuss enlightenment, they had to stand like a mountain, feet rooted, spine straight, shoulders relaxed. Not because it looked impressive, because the body shapes the mind. Science now proves what they knew. Your physical state dictates your mental state. Slump your shoulders, and your brain releases stress hormones. Stand tall, and it pumps out confidence chemicals. Breathe shallowly, and anxiety follows. Breathe deeply, and calm emerges. The chain of control runs body or mind, not the other way around. This changes everything. Most people try to think their way out of fear. They repeat mantras, they visualize success. But if their body is clenched and their breath is tight, the mind won't listen. The masters had a saying, a restless body breeds a restless mind. You can't calm a storm by shouting at the wind. You have to change the conditions that created it. Here's how they trained it. Before any test, whether a sparring match or a meditation, students were drilled in the 4 anchors. 1 feet on the ground, not just standing, rooting, feeling the earth beneath you. The masters would have students stand barefoot on stone for hours, not to toughen their feet, but to teach them, when you know you cannot fall, fear cannot rise. 2. Breath in the belly, not chest breathing, deep, diaphragmatic breaths. They'd place a stone on a student's stomach and say, lift this with your breath. Why? Because belly breathing triggers the parasympathetic nervous system. It's a biological off switch for panic. 3. Spine like a string, not stiff, not slouched. Imagine a thread pulling you up from the crown of your head. The moment your spine aligns, your mind follows. Ever noticed how hard it is to feel defeated when you're standing like a warrior? 4. Shoulders like wings, not hunched forward. The posture of fear, not pulled back rigidly. The posture of ego, just easy. The masters said, when the shoulders rest, the heart opens. Practice this now. Stand up, feel your feet, breathe into your belly, adjust your spine, relax your shoulders. Notice what happens. Without a single thought, your mind begins to settle. This isn't magic, it's physiology. The masters took this further. They knew that movement could reset the mind. Ever paced when nervous? That's your body trying to heal your mind. They'd have students perform slow, deliberate forms, not to train fighting, but to train focus. The body moves with intention, and the mind has no choice but to follow. This is why they laughed at mind over matter. To them, it was always matter over mind. One student, overwhelmed before an exam, was given a broom. Sweep, the master said. The student protested. The master repeated, sweep. After an hour of silent sweeping, the student's panic was gone, not because he'd convinced himself to relax, because his body had led his mind there. So next time fear takes hold, don't start with your thoughts, start with your hands, your breath, your posture. The mind is a servant to the body. Master the vessel, and the passenger will calm itself. The 2 arrows principle. There's a moment in every person's life when pain arrives, unexpected, sharp, undeniable. Maybe it's a rejection, a failure, a loss, and in that moment, something interesting happens. The pain itself is one thing, but what comes after, that's where most people lose themselves. The ancient masters spoke of 2 arrows. The first arrow is life. It's the cut, the bruise, the fall. It's the job you didn't get, the words that hurt you, the plan that failed. This arrow, you can't avoid it. No one can. Life shoots this arrow at everyone, but then comes the second arrow. This one isn't shot by life, it's shot by you. It's the story you tell yourself about the pain. I'm worthless. This always happens to me. I'll never recover. This arrow, this one, is optional. Most people don't realize they're holding the bow. They think the suffering is part of the pain. It's not. The pain is the first arrow. The suffering is the second. And here's the truth. The first arrow might draw blood, but the second arrow is the one that poisons you. The masters trained their students to see this clearly. They would take them into the forest, make them sit for hours in the cold, in the rain, in discomfort, not to punish them, but to teach them the difference between pain and suffering. The cold was the first arrow. The "I can't take this" was the second. One student, after days of this training, finally understood. He said, "The rain isn't the problem. My hatred of the rain is the problem. This is the secret. You can't control the first arrow, but the second, that's always your choice." Think about the last time you felt real pain, physical or emotional. Now think about what happened after. How much of your suffering came from the event itself, and how much came from your thoughts about it. The shame, the regret, the "if only." That's the second arrow. The masters had a simple practice for this. Whenever pain came, whether a sparring injury or a harsh word, they would pause and ask, where does the pain end and the suffering begin? The more they practiced this, the clearer the line became. Here's how you can train this. Next time something painful happens, big or small, take a breath, feel the first impact, then watch your mind. Notice the moment it starts spinning stories. This shouldn't have happened. Why me? What now? That's the second arrow being loaded. Now, here's the key. You don't have to stop the thoughts. Just see them for what they are. Arrows you're about to shoot into yourself, and then lower the bow. This isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about not adding fuel to the fire. Grief is natural, but grief plus "I'll never be happy again" is suffering. Anger is natural, but anger plus "this person is evil" is suffering. Failure is natural, but failure plus "I'm a failure" is suffering. One of the most powerful teachings was this: the first arrow makes you human, the second arrow makes you weak. A warrior isn't someone who never gets hit. A warrior is someone who stops shooting themselves. Fear needs fuel. Stop feeding it. Imagine a fire, a small one, just a few embers. Now imagine someone throwing wood on it, then more wood, then gasoline. What happens? The fire grows, it spreads, it becomes uncontrollable. Fear works the same way. Most people think fear is like a boulder, solid, heavy, immovable, but it's not. Fear is more like a flame, and like any flame, it needs fuel to survive. The problem: most people spend their lives feeding their fears without realizing it. The masters saw this clearly. They watched students tremble before training, imagining all the ways they could fail, all the ways they could get hurt. And then they asked them a simple question: who's telling you these stories? The answer: they were. Every time you avoid something because you're afraid, you feed the fear. Every time you replay a worst-case scenario in your head, you feed the fear. Every time you hesitate, overthink, or seek reassurance, you feed the fear. The solution isn't to fight the fear, it's to starve it. The masters had a method for this. They called it the path of small fires. Instead of avoiding fear, they would walk toward it, but in tiny, controlled steps. A student afraid of heights wouldn't be thrown off a cliff. They'd start by climbing a low wall, then a higher one, then a tree. Each time, the fear would rise, but because the step was small, the fear couldn't consume them, and each time they faced it, the fear lost a little power. This is how you train the mind, not by avoiding fear, but by proving it wrong, over and over. Here's the truth. Fear doesn't want you to know. It's a liar. It tells you the worst will happen. But most of the time, the worst never comes. And even when it does, you handle it. Fear never accounts for your ability to adapt. The masters would say, fear is a guest who never leaves unless you stop serving it. So how do you stop serving it? First, notice the fuel. Every time you feel fear, ask, what am I doing to feed this right now? Are you imagining the worst? Are you avoiding action? Are you seeking comfort instead of courage? Second, take the smallest step forward, not a leap, a step. Fear grows in the space between I can't and I did. Shrink that space. Third, repeat. Fear doesn't vanish in one act of bravery. It fades through consistent acts of bravery. One student asked, what if the fear never goes away? The master smiled, then you'll have a lifetime of chances to be brave. That's the final lesson. Fear isn't your enemy. It's your training partner. The more you face it, the stronger you become, but only if you stop feeding it. The mirror of the mind. There's a reason why temples are quiet, why monasteries sit on mountaintops, far from cities, why monks guard their eyes and ears as carefully as their fists. They understand something most people never realize. Your mind doesn't create thoughts, it reflects them. Think about an actual mirror. What happens when you place a red cloth in front of it? The mirror turns red. A blue cloth, it turns blue. The mirror doesn't decide. It doesn't resist. It simply reflects what's placed before it. Your mind works the same way. Watch violent films every night. Your mind starts reflecting violence in your dreams, in your temper, in how you see the world. Listen to angry music on loop. Your mind hums with aggression, even when you're alone. Scroll through social media for hours, absorbing complaints and drama. Your mind begins manufacturing its own. This isn't philosophy, it's neurology. Your brain builds neural pathways based on what you feed it. The masters knew this centuries before science proved it. They called it the mirror principle. What you expose yourself to, you become. One young student learned this the hard way. He loved street brawls, not fighting in them, watching them. He'd return to the temple buzzing with energy, fists clenched, eyes wild. His master said nothing, just handed him a bowl of muddy water and told him to stare at it. After an hour, the student complained, "My reflection is ugly." The master nodded. The water doesn't decide what it shows. You made it muddy. From that day on, the student guarded his mental mirror like a sacred duty. Here's how you can do the same. Start noticing what you allow into your mind, not just the big things, the news, the movies, the music, but the small things too. The gossip you listen to, the arguments you replay in your head, the memories you keep revisiting. Each one leaves a mark. The masters had a rule. Before you consume, ask, do I want this in my mirror? This doesn't mean avoiding reality. It means choosing which version of reality you amplify. Watch a documentary about war, and your mind fills with war. Watch a documentary about human kindness, and your mind fills with that instead. Both truths exist, but which one do you want shaping your thoughts? There's a practice they use to clean the mental mirror. Each morning, before speaking or eating, students would spend 10 minutes absorbing something noble, a poem, a sunrise, the sound of wind through bamboo. They called it setting the reflection, like priming a canvas before painting. Whatever entered first colored the rest of the day. Try this for 1 week. Be ruthless about what touches your mind. If a conversation turns toxic, walk away. If a show leaves you anxious, stop watching. Notice how your thoughts change. You'll start seeing what the monks knew all along. Your mind is the most sensitive instrument you own. Treat it that way. The warriors pause. Reacting is easy. Any animal can do it. A dog barks at a knock. A cat hisses at a threat. Instinct takes over, and action follows. Humans have this too, but we also have something else. The pause. Most people never use it. Someone insults you, you fire back. A problem arises, you panic. A challenge appears, you retreat. These aren't choices, they're reflexes, and reflexes make slaves of us all. The masters taught that true power lives in the gap between what happens and what you do about it. They call this gap the warrior's pause. Here's how it works. When triggered by anger, fear, surprise, your body reacts first. Heart races, breath quickens, muscles tense. This is biology. You can't stop it. But what happens next is where training takes over. Untrained minds spiral. This is bad. I can't handle this. I need to fix it now. Trained minds do something radical. Nothing. They pause. Not to suppress the feeling, not to pretend they're unbothered, but to let the wave pass before choosing how to move. One student described it like this. It's the difference between being pushed by the river and standing in it. The water still flows, but you're not swept away. The masters built this pause through drills. A favorite. Students would spar while a senior monk shouted insults mid-fight. The goal wasn't to ignore the taunts or fight harder, but to keep perfect form despite them. Over time, they learned to separate external chaos from internal calm. You can train this without a sparring partner. Next time you're triggered, cut off in traffic, provoked in an argument, stressed by bad news, do this. Freeze. Not your body. That creates tension. Freeze your reaction. Like hitting pause on a movie. The scene still plays, but you're not following the script. Breathe into your belly. One deep breath is enough to shift your nervous system from panic to presence. Ask, what's the wise response? Not the clever one, not the satisfying one. The wise one. This pause, sometimes just 2 seconds, changes everything. It's the difference between sending an angry text and walking away, between quitting when things get hard and adjusting your approach, between being ruled by emotion and being guided by purpose. The masters said, in battle, the first to react is the first to die. They weren't just talking about fights. They meant the battles we face daily, with others, with circumstances, with ourselves. Train the pause. It's the birthplace of true control, the art of not fighting fear. There's a mistake nearly everyone makes when fear shows up. They try to fight it. They argue with it. They push against it, like it's an enemy that needs to be defeated. And that's exactly why fear wins. Because fear doesn't work like other opponents. The more you resist it, the stronger it becomes. The ancient masters understood this better than anyone. They didn't teach their students to conquer fear through force. They taught them something far more powerful, the art of not fighting at all. Imagine you're in a small boat on a rough river. The water is choppy, the waves are high, and your first instinct is to paddle harder, to fight the current. But what happens when you do that? You tire yourself out. You might even tip the boat over. Now imagine instead that you stop paddling. You let the boat move with the water. You adjust your balance, but you don't resist. The waves are still there, but they don't control you anymore. Fear is the same. When you feel fear rising before a performance, during a conflict, when facing uncertainty, your natural reaction is to tense up, to brace, to resist. But resistance is just another form of attention, and fear feeds on attention. The masters had a saying, "What you resist persists. What you observe dissolves." Here's how they trained this. Students would sit in complete darkness, alone, for hours. At first their minds would race with fear of the dark, of unseen dangers, of their own thoughts. The instruction was simple: don't push the fear away. Don't entertain it either. Just watch it like clouds passing in the sky. Over time they learned something profound. Fear loses its power when you stop treating it like a threat. You can practice this right now. Next time fear appears, whether it's anxiety before a big meeting or dread about the future, try this. Notice where it lives in your body. Fear isn't just a thought. It's a physical sensation, a tight chest, a knot in your stomach, cold hands. Find it. Breathe into that space. Don't try to relax. Don't try to change anything. Just send your breath there, like you're shining a light on it. Label it silently. This is fear. Not my fear. Not this terrible fear. Just fear. Neutral. Impersonal. Let it be. This is the hardest part. Most people either run from fear or try to crush it. The middle way, let it sit there without giving it meaning. A student once asked, "But how do I stop fear from controlling me?" The master replied, "Who said it's controlling you? You're the one watching it. Does the sky control the clouds? This is the secret. Fear doesn't need to disappear for you to be free. You just need to stop believing it's in charge." The ritual of fear taming. Every warrior has a ritual, not superstition, not empty habit, a deliberate signal to the mind and body. It's time. The masters didn't leave focus to chance. They built it into action. Before sparring, a specific way to tie the belt. Before meditation, a precise method of lighting incense. Before sleep, a practiced sequence of breaths. These weren't traditions, they were psychological triggers. Why? Because the mind responds to repetition, to rhythm, to anchors. When you perform the same action with the same intention, again and again, something shifts. The body remembers before the mind does. The hands know before the thoughts do. A boxer adjusts his gloves before a fight, and suddenly, he is present. A musician taps her foot 3 times, and the nerves fade. These aren't coincidences, they're trained responses. Fear thrives in uncertainty. Ritual kills uncertainty. Here's how to build your own. Choose a trigger moment. The instant you wake up before a difficult conversation. When entering a crowded room. Design a simple, repeatable action. It could be pressing thumb and index finger together. A single, deep breath through the nose. Straightening your posture and rolling your shoulders. Pair it with a mental command. Just one word or phrase. Focus. Ready. Steady. Repeat until it's automatic. The first few times, it'll feel forced. That's normal. After a week, you'll notice something strange. The fear weakens before you even finish the ritual. One student, terrified of public speaking, was told to clench his left fist 3 times before speaking. "Why 3?" he asked. The master shrugged. "Why not?" The number didn't matter. The consistency did. After months of practice, the student realized he'd stopped counting. His body had learned fist. Clench means calm. This is the power of ritual. It bypasses thought. It quiets the noise. Your turn. Pick one fear, one ritual, then trust the process. The masters didn't conquer fear through sheer will. They built bridges of habit and walked across them every day. The illusion of control There's a reason people check the weather forecast 10 times before a trip, why they reread emails before sending them, why they plan every detail of a future that hasn't happened yet. It's the same reason fear exists in the first place. The desperate need to control what cannot be controlled. The masters saw this craving in every student who walked through the temple gates. The nervous ones who asked, "What if I fail?" The overthinkers who needed every technique explained before trying it. The perfectionists who froze when things didn't go as planned. They all shared one thing. They believed control was possible. Then the training would begin. Students were sent into the forest at night with no light, told to spar without knowing their opponent's style, asked to meditate while monks clanged cymbals behind them. At first, they resisted. They wanted rules, predictability, guarantees. Slowly, they learned control is an illusion. Adaptability is real power. Here's the truth fear doesn't want you to see. You don't fear the unknown. You fear your imagined version of the unknown. Think about it. When was the last time the worst case scenario you played in your head actually happened? Almost never. And on the rare occasions it did, were you as powerless as you feared? Probably not. You adapted. You figured it out. The masters had a saying, a sword that never leaves its sheath grows brittle. If you only act when you're certain of the outcome, you'll never act at all. Worse, you'll never discover what you're capable of. This is why they trained in chaos, why they changed sparring partners daily, why they practiced forms blindfolded. Not to punish, to teach. You don't need to see the path to walk it. Try this shift today. Next time you catch yourself seeking certainty, what if they don't like me? What if I make a mistake? What if things go wrong? Pause. Ask instead, if that happens, can I handle it? The answer is always yes. Because you've handled everything up to this point. Every past fear, every past uncertainty. You're still here. A student once begged his master for the right way to perform a technique. The master threw sand in his eyes and attacked. Later, with tears still clearing the grit, the student understood, there is no right way. There's only your way in this moment. That's the freedom in releasing control. You stop preparing for life and start living it. The final test, fear as a teacher. Most people asked the wrong question about fear. They ask, how do I get rid of it? The masters asked, what is it trying to show me? In the temple, fear wasn't a weakness to erase. It was a map, a flashing arrow, pointing exactly where a student needed to grow. Think of the last time fear stopped you. Not the surface reason, I was afraid of failing, but the deeper one. What did that fear reveal? Fear of public speaking. You care deeply about being seen. Fear of rejection. You value connection. Fear of uncertainty. You have a mind that tries to protect you. These aren't flaws, they're clues. The training was simple. When fear arose, students weren't allowed to avoid it or push through it blindly. They had to sit with it until they understood its message. One young monk spent 3 days trembling before climbing a training pole. When he finally did, his master asked, what did the fear teach you? The answer, that I wasn't afraid of falling. I was afraid of looking weak. If I fell, that realization changed everything. Here's how to make fear your teacher. When fear appears, stop running. Literally, freeze. Let it catch up to you. Ask it questions. What exactly am I afraid of? Not the general failure, the specific looking stupid in front of Mark. What does this say about what I value? If this fear came to help me, what would it want me to learn? Thank it. This sounds strange, but it works. Thanks for trying to protect me. Now let's see what's really here. A master once told a student paralyzed by fear, you keep waiting for courage to arrive. Courage is what's left when you stop listening to fear's lies. That's the final lesson. Fear isn't the wall, it's the doorway. walk through. The difference between those ruled by fear and those who rise above it. Not genetics, not luck, just training. The same training Shaolin monks have used for centuries. And now, it's yours.